Good day, good people, and welcome to Revolutionary Belovedness. I'm Robert Farrell, and whether you are here for the first time or watching a recording, thank you for being part of our community. And if you're a first-timer, we will guide you through our evening together. Before I go any further, if you will, let me know in the chat section that you can hear me okay. Make sure all of our technology is working well. Give it just a minute to make sure. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Tonight we are reflecting on contemplation and social transformation. This is about holding the inner awakening and the outer change as inseparable dimensions of spirituality. And once you spent a little bit of time with me, you will hear me say often that you cannot give what you do not have. And so we will be exploring deeper into that this evening. We'll take a moment to center. I'll take time to share a reflection. Remember that the chat section remains open, so at any time, if you have something that comes to your heart you want to share, a question, a comment, a reflection, anything at all, put that in the chat, and I'll do my best to integrate that into our conversation. After the reflection, we'll have some time for spiritual practice. And then I will offer you 4 questions for deeper reflection. Those questions will be available on the recording on the Mighty Network so that you can have even more time to spend with those and hopefully to interact with others that are responding to those questions. Let's take a moment to center ourselves, to find a comfortable position and allow your body to settle. Let the weight of the day release slowly, breath by breath, in and out. Friends, something happens when we stop performing spirituality and begin to receive it. Contemplation is that turn inward, that willingness to go beneath the surface of our own thoughts and anxieties until something quieter and more foundational becomes audible. Every contemplative tradition across the world's great religions has named this moment as essential to spiritual maturity. And Wayne Teasdale recognized through decades of study and deep encounter with mystics and saints across all tradition that the fruits of the inner life converge at the same source. The one divine presence is behind it all, in every age, in every culture, in every sincere act of surrender. This is known as the perennial tradition. Surrender of this kind, friends, is more demanding than it first appears. The way many people approach the spiritual life tends toward accumulation. Programs are completed, insights are gathered, disciplines are mastered. However, Richard Rohr names this tendency clearly. He says that the false self is remarkably adept at managing a spiritual portfolio, busying itself with calculating, comparing, and curating its own progress. It can engage in prayer and meditation while remaining fundamentally closed, treating contemplation as an achievement to secure, when the deeper invitation is a space to enter and a space to receive. Friends, the call alive in every authentic mystical tradition is surrender, the kind that loosens the grip of the self-managing mind and allows a different and far more real quality of awareness to arise. Richard Rohr calls this the second gaze. You can read more about the second gaze in our show notes on the Mighty Network. Friends, the first gaze is seldom compassionate. It's too busy weighing everything in relationship to the self, measuring how this moment serves its own interest, how the other person reflects on its standing, how the situation might be brought under control. The second gaze is contemplative. It emerges only after the first gaze has run its course and spent itself. And what opens in that spaciousness is something extraordinary. It is the capacity to see with God's own eyes, which are always eyes of compassion. And this is the place that Richard Rohr insists from which true action must spring. All action that arises from the first gaze alone remains reaction. It's driven by the urgent demands of the small and defended self. Now, in Valerie Kaur's Revolutionary Love, she tells us about the practice of deep listening, and that practice carries exactly this quality that we're talking about. Deep listening is an act of surrender. The listener risks being changed by what they hear, allowing the other person's reality to open something within them that was previously defended. And friends, this is the posture of the second gaze encountered in relationship. The contemplative who enters real stillness and the listener who genuinely attends to another are practicing the same fundamental movement, the surrender of the defended self into the presence of what is real. The surrender of the defended self into the presence of what is real. So friends, contemplation and listening are really the same interior movement expressed in different registers. Contemplation is listening at its most foundational. It is listening at its most foundational. The whole self turned toward the ground of being, open and receptive to the movement of love that holds all things in existence. Listening, practiced with genuine depth and intention, becomes a form of contemplation, a way of attending to another person with such full presence that it participates in the divine attention that holds that person in being. And what flows from that quality of attention is the insight that the ancient teachers across all traditions have always returned to, that the love offered to the world must first be drawn from a living source. The great mystics and saints transformed their worlds because they had been transformed first, shaped by sustained contact with a love larger than their own capacity to generate. And their own outward power arose entirely from that inward formation. And Wayne Teasdale saw this plainly. The more that a person is immersed in the divine presence, the more they become love and action. The capacity to respond to others from genuine compassion, kindness, and sensitivity is directly related to the depths of one's inner life. And the depth of inner life, the depth that the inner life contemplation cultivates, is precisely what makes it the true foundation of social transformation. The source from which lasting change becomes possible. And Richard Rohr names it simply, how we do anything is probably how we do everything. Friends, when the inner life is habitually reactive, defensive, and fearful, those qualities saturate every engagement with the world, regardless of how just our causes or how earnest our intentions. When the inner life has learned to grow still, to listen, to receive, those qualities flow outward as well. The contemplative mind changes our inner ecology from which all action springs. From that changed inner ecology, the practice of deep listening takes on its full transforming power. The listener who has gone inward, who has practiced surrender and received something of the second gaze, that listener brings a wholly different quality of attention to the one before them. Listening to honor the full humanity of another person and to encounter the divine image alive in that face. Valerie Kaur poses the searching questions that real listening demands. What is at stake for the other person, and what does their story ask of the one who has truly heard? These questions can only be received by someone who has created real inner space through sustained contemplative practice. Someone fully present and available to what arrives. Friends, the spiritual dimensions of solidarity are learned in precisely this interior space. Contemplation cultivates within us a direct, felt awareness that all beings share the same ground of being. Wayne Teasdale named this as essential to a universal spirituality, because the contemplative grasp inwardly, existentially, the intrinsic interdependence of all beings. This is a lived knowledge, arising in moments of genuine interior openness when the boundaries of the self soften enough that the reality of our connectedness becomes palpable and undeniable. From that felt awareness, solidarity becomes natural and generous. We act on behalf of others because we have sensed in the quiet depths that their lives and ours are part of the same sacred movement of being, the same divine breath moving through all things. That same breath, felt inwardly, always seeks to move beyond the self. And what has been received pours itself forward. This is where Wayne Teasdale describes it as love in action, the inner, natural, emergent intention of the person with a good heart. The image that serves here is a person who has learned to be a channel, who has sat long enough in stillness to let their noise of the ego quiet, who has allowed themselves to be found by the source. From that recognition, action arises with a wholly different character. Prophetic witness, responsive to the suffering of the human community, arising from a wholeness that has touched its own source and overflows toward the world. Reaching that place of overflow is the work of a sustained and honest practice. This is why Richard Rohr speaks of the second gaze as something arrived at through consistent returning. Morning prayer and evening stillness, the daily choice to receive rather than to manage. The false self has decades of practice at protecting itself. Thus, the invitation is to trust that every genuine moment of interior stillness, every sincere act of surrender, every breath taken in real openness is already participating in the transformation it seeks to serve. And it is these small acts of interior honesty, practiced faithfully, that accumulate over time into something that genuinely reshapes the world. Friends, the contemplative and the activist are, in their truest expressions, aspects of one vocation. And so when the inner life is tended with deep and depth and honesty, the outer life of service, witness, and compassionate action becomes sustainable, becomes rooted, becomes capable of lasting fruit. And when the outer life is carried with genuine sincereness and commitment, it sends us back inward to the source that alone makes it possible. The two movements nourish each other continuously. The stillness of contemplation sustains the labor of love, and the labor of love makes the contemplation honest and alive. To listen, as tonight's session invites, is to take up the full contemplative practice at once. It is to listen inward to the still depths where divine love is always already present. It is to listen outward to the lives of those whose struggles and gifts are invitations to encounter the holy and the human. And it is to listen across the vast conversations of traditions, teachers, and generations that have all, in their own way, heard something true in the silence and allowed what they heard to change the way they move through the world. And for now, friends, that concludes our reflection on contemplation and social transformation. Take a moment to take a breath before we go into our guided meditation. If there's anything you'd like to share in the chat, take a moment to do so. I'd like to invite you to let your hands rest open in your lap and feel their weight. Feel the warmth gathering quietly in your palms. Close your eyes if that's comfortable. Bring the attention to the chest and notice what is happening there, whatever it is. A tightness, perhaps, or a fullness. The familiar hum of motion the day has set running and left unfinished. And allow your breath to be long and slow. Let it move all the way into the belly. Stay there. Feel the belly rise and release. Breathe again. because this is where everything begins, in the body. In this faithful, breathing body that has been carrying the day. Notice the quality of your attention right now. Is it wide or narrow, scattered or gathered, light or heavy? Don't judge it, just let it be as it is. Simply notice where your attention lives, what it is doing with this moment, whether it is reaching or resting. Simply observe it. Good. Now let the attention sink beneath the surface, below the level of thought, below the plans and assessments and the sense of what still needs to be done, because there is something quieter. Sink beneath it. There is a kind of ground, a presence that has been waiting all day beneath the emotion. You may feel it as a stillness behind the noise. You may feel it as a warmth in the center of your chest. Or you may simply feel it as a deepening in the breath. Now, friends, let the mind move gently toward a time when you touch that stillness for real. And that memory can be small and ordinary. It may have been a morning before the house woke, a moment in nature, a moment in prayer, or maybe even the middle of grief, when everything suddenly became very simple. Whatever it is, let that memory arrive at its own pace. Where were you in your body when the stillness came? What did it feel like in the hands, in the chest, in the quality of seeing? And stay with that memory. Wherever it was in the body, something in that held place is still available to you. Let your body remember. And softly ask, what came out of you in the time after that stillness? What became available that had been closed off before? Was there a quality of attention, a generosity, a clarity that the stillness had made possible? Or did something shift in how you saw the people around you and what you were willing to offer? Contemplation moves in a direction. It always has somewhere to go. The stillness within you and the suffering around you are already in conversation. Let your attention widen into the life you carry outside this room, the needs you are aware of, the suffering you have witnessed, or the suffering that lives in your body on behalf of people you love or feel. What is the quality of the attention you bring to that suffering? Is it the attention of someone who has first been filled, who moves toward others from a place of having been held? Or does it carry the weight of someone reaching out from a place of depletion, hoping that the action itself will restore them? Let that question land where it lands. Good. Now, think of someone you know who moves through the world from a place of genuine depth, simply present to what is real, and from that presence capable of something the rest of the room can feel. What is it about them that you recognize? And where in you does that recognition live? What would it mean to offer that quality of presence to your own work in the world? What would it free you to give? And as we enter into the silence for a couple of minutes, let the breath be the teacher. Let the stillness answer. Breathing in, receiving. Breathing out, overflowing. Breathing in, receiving. Breathing out, overflowing. Take time to let your attention widen gently. Notice the room around you. Notice the sounds around you. Feel the weight of the body in the chair. Feel the light on your skin. And take one full breath in and out. Friends, whatever arose in this practice has already made its home in you. It's settled in the body that listened and the breath that received. And the world outside is waiting. So carry what arose lightly into the next conversations you have. And may it hold you as you hold it. Okay, friends, the chat section is still open. Thank you for sharing in that time of practice together. I'm going to offer you some questions for deeper reflection. If you would like to give a brief answer to any of these questions as I share them, and I'm going to post them in the chat as well, you feel free to do that. I encourage each of you to go to the recording page later and pick at least one of them and see if you can't respond to it fully and share it with others. First, what is the quality of the inner life from which your engagement with the world currently flows? And can you name a moment when you noticed a difference between acting from a full place and acting from a depleted one? Next, contemplation has sometimes been described as turning away from the world. But this session explored something differently. What does this session's exploration suggest about the relationship between going inward and being genuinely present to the suffering around us? Next, where in your own experience or in the life of someone you know has a sustained inner practice visibly shaped the quality of outward action? And what did that look like? And next, if the love available to offer the world must first be received within the self, what practices or forms of community are currently sustaining your inner life? And where do you sense an invitation to go deeper? So I'll pause for a couple of minutes or maybe a minute to see if anyone wants to respond to any of those. Our sessions are every Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Central Time. I usually list 3 sessions ahead of time in the events calendar, so you can always see those. And each session is recorded. The recording is available on the Mighty Network and on YouTube. So if you miss a session or you have another appointment or you come late for any reason, you can always go back and watch the recording. As we wait to see if there's any others that would like to share. I will tell you, it currently appears as though at the end of August, we are going to make a transition more fully into Substack and Crowdcast instead of the Mighty Network, as it has been with most things in our society today. Costs are influencing decisions more, and Mighty Network does have a higher cost than others. And quite frankly, some of the functions that we invested in the Mighty Network aren't really being used by our community. So it only makes sense to make some decisions responsibly about what meets the community needs. The Substack is and always has been active, so you can check that out and subscribe to that as well and to see what's going on. It's still a few months away. I'd just like to make mention of that. And lastly, if you have not heard, I recently released my first book. Kind of came about unexpectedly from some of my own private explorations with song and word. And by the time I finished putting words on paper, it looked as though I had compiled a book, and so that is out and available. It's called The Sermons of a Showgirl. Again, friends, whether you have been here for the live session or you are watching the recording, thank you for continuing to be part of our small community. We are very grateful and so glad to have you. I noticed that we did have a couple of first-timers tonight, so thank you for being here. I hope you will come back again. And so, blessings to all, and good night for now.